when I was doing my order flow training, I was told that think of these initiative candles as somebody who's at the airport, who does not have a ticket, but goes to one of those counters, like your Indigo counter or a Vistara counter, and tells them, I'm willing to pay you the price, just get me a seat onto this flight because I have to go from Pune to Delhi, and just give me a place anywhere. I'm willing to pay whatever price it is. That is a market order for you. Now, why does this person do it? Because he's got an agenda in Delhi. He wants to fly from Pune to Delhi for a conference, for some reason, for a family thing, for whatever he's doing it. But he's got an agenda, he's got a plan, right? The casual trader is not going to go and walk into Indigo counter at the airport and say, give me a ticket at whatever price. If he has a plan to go Delhi, he'll book 25 days in advance, and then he's going to book. But the man in a hurry is going to pay whatever price is to be paid to get onto that seat. And that is the definition of a market order. They pay whatever price is needed to pay because they realize that this market is short and wants to go down. So they are in a hurry to go down. And all these sellers, they entered around this 25,700. In fact, they got a second chance to enter again at 25,700, and the market dropped 700 points lower to about 25,000 and even below. But if you just take a minute and you start watching all of this again and again and just let it sink in, you go one level down, this suddenly starts making infinite sense to you, because what the market orders are the drivers of price action, and just locating where these market orders are in a bar is the key to all that you need to do in order flow.
Good evening, guys. A quick sound check. Welcome back to this Monday 5 p.m. session. And let's start with what we generally do with the weekly review. And then we'll move on to one very important feature of market profile, which is the open type. So let's start. We have the weekly report on screen, the week which has gone by, which was 14th to the 18th. So this is the calendar week which we take and is based on spot. So what we did last week was we formed opposite kind of profiles in both Nifty as well as Bank Nifty. Nifty both made an attempt to probe higher, but Nifty was the first to show this rejection. We got an initiative selling tail on the 15th. From there, we went on to make lower lows on all the rest of the days of the week. In fact, this 25212 was a weekly FA, which went on to hit the 180R target of 24677 on Friday in the lower open. And we went on to tag one important reference of 24581, which was a daily VPOC plus a monthly buying reference. So when we hit that 24581, we took support and we left a initiative buying tail. So that is when the sellers, the laggard sellers were forced to cover, and we also saw some demand coming back, which is why we got this 10-day up on Friday. So on the weekly, what we did was we formed a neutral extreme weekly profile to the downside. So we have a tail at the top and a failed auction, and we closed well below the weekly IBL. And what we did was we completed that 180R move, the objective of this failed auction, and we have left a similar tail at the lows. So if you see on the weekly, it is a neutral extreme, but it is also a 313 profile. It's a nice balance with the value overlapping on both sides. So last week was a Gaussian curve, and we were expecting this Gaussian curve to give way to a trending move, and it did try. The auction tried in both the direction, but it failed. It tried on the upside, it failed, it left a tail, and then it left a failed auction, left an extension handle here at 24908 and went below this previous lows. But what it did was it took support at this 24581 level, and it has left a responsive buying tail and has come back into this composite. So you can see how on the weekly we have continued to be in a range, continued the balance which we had seen in the week prior to last week, to this week. So what was the outlook for this week? Value was overlapping at both ends, and the auction failed to move away from previous week's balance with tails at top and bottom. So we'll need to negate either 24611 on the downside for a probe towards the lower HVNs of 24420 and 24304. Below that, we have a weekly VPOC of 24149. These will be the downside objectives in case we are able to break below this 24611 and sustain. Whereas on the upside, the selling tail is at 25160. So we are way below this, and in fact, we are even way below this POC. So 25160, if we are able to take out, the next reference would be the swing failed auction point of 25212. If these two levels are taken out by the buyers, then we can look for a probe higher to 25272, 25415, and finally the September's series VWAP of 25539. So let us have a look at what we have done today. So this is the weekly chart of Nifty spot with today's profile aligned. So you can see clearly we opened higher today, but what we did, we tested this extension handle of 24908, but we are not able to sustain above it. And we came back to leave a selling tail at the top. So this selling tail will be our reference for the week. This was an open rejection reverse chart. We'll come to the open type when we discuss the futures, and we will discuss in detail about how to identify the open type and what qualifies to be a strong open. So what we have done is we swipe through this value, but we have taken support just above this buying tail of 24611. So we have left a tail at the lows in the B period, which was tested by making lower lows in the FNG. So on the daily profile, we have formed a B-shape profile. B-shape is a long liquidation profile, and what we have done is we are way below the weekly POC. So if we are looking at the weekly chart, if we will be biased to the downside if we have found value below the weekly POC. So for tomorrow, this POC of 24808 will be our first reference, and this selling tail of A period today, you can see how we have stalled right at this zone of singles. This is a selling supply zone. So we have again left footprints that the supply is strong over the year. So till the time we are not able to sustain in this A period tail, we will look for more downside in the for the rest of the week. This POC would be our immediate reference. We have closed around the POC 24789, I think is the close. And if I take you to the daily chart, you can see how we have formed a very nice 3-day balance on the daily time frame. See, what we did on Thursday was form a B-shaped profile where we got that big open drive down moving away from this balance, and we made a continuation of this trend day, but we got a reverse initiative buying tail and we got back into this range. So again, this A period selling tail is not been taken out, and this has been complemented by another a fresh A period selling tail. So you can see the 3-day value is almost similar, overlapping. So what we can do on the daily time frame is merge these three profiles and have this composite as our reference for the next session. So you can see the close is right at the POC of 24789. This is the prominent POC. So if we get a strong open tomorrow and a move away from this POC, then we can look for a bigger move in that direction. So what will be the references? This 24727, the value area low will have to be taken out. And importantly, we will need to get some reference because this is a spot chart. We don't have volumes in this, but we will have to get an extension handle or a halfback around this level to give us that confirmation that the auction is headed in this direction. On the upside, this 24876, which is equivalent to today's selling tail, will be the reference in spot. So this is how we are placed in spot for tomorrow and the rest of the week. If we sustain below this 24727, then we have this 24611 as our main reference. So if we are taking this buying tail out, then we are looking for lower levels of 24469, 24420, and finally this VPOC of 24150, the weekly VPOC. So let's see how that goes, and we will keep updating that on our weekly report. This report gets updated and these hypos will get updated on a daily basis. Today's hypos on the upside was this 24968, which was the MTPO high of 16th of October, and it is also the monthly IBL level. So we made a high of 24977, which is where we stalled, and from there we went on to break this. We went on to come down to test this BTPO, almost this BTPO halfback. 24658 will be our first reference for tomorrow. Below that, we'll have this 24611 buying tail. We made a low of 24679 today. And as seen, we have closed in a 3-day balance and right at the POC of the 3-day composite. So we will have to see how we get a move tomorrow and accordingly look for trading in that direction. So coming to the Bank Nifty spot, what we did in Bank Nifty last week was we started on a bullish note, in a more bullish note than Nifty, because we left an AP rate single at previous week's value. So this was more bullish than Nifty because Nifty we were not able to take off the value area high on the first day. But here we formed higher value. But the only thing was we were not able to extend much. The buyers were not able to extend much to the upside. So we formed a P-shaped profile. However, this value area was our reference. In case we got back into this value area, then we were looking for a tag of this POC. And this we discussed last Monday also in the 5 p.m. session. So what followed after the Monday's P-shaped profile was we formed a 2-day Gaussian curve. In fact, after we formed this Gaussian curve on 15th, we were expecting a trending move on the 16th, which was the weekly settlement of Bank Nifty. But however, we did not get a move away from this balance. We were not able to take off the high of the or the low, and in fact remained in a similar range and completed a 2-day composite, a 2-day Gaussian curve, from where we got this open drive down and we got a big liquidation profile, B-shaped profile, which took support at the daily VPOC of 51166. So, however, because it was forming lower value and the sellers were had entered, a test of this POC was definitely on cards, which happened in the lower open on Friday. But what the test did was the test got back buying, and that buying got this big huge trend day profile up. This was 1200 point range day on Friday, which made new lows for the week at open and went on to make new highs for the week at the close. So this 51,001, which was the low of Friday, was also a weekly FA, and the week 180-hour objective of that was tagged in the morning today at open. So if we look at the review, what we did was neutral extreme week to the upside with overlapping to higher value. This is the weekly profile where we have formed higher value, and this prominent POC of 51879 will be our support for this week. So it is looking set to complete the 180-hour objective of 52321. This was the 180-hour objective which we were looking to get hit today, and it got hit today at the open itself. And the higher targets was 52566, 52818. And on the downside, this week's POC of 51879 will be the important support below which we can look for a test of these references: 51600, 51381, and 51190. The description of these hypos will be given in this daily update which we make. So they will be on this, but this is based on the weekly chart. So if we look at the weekly time frame, below this we are looking for a fill up of this profile and a tag of this 51,000 FA level. So what we have done today in Bank Nifty, let's have a look. What we did was we opened higher, and you can see even on the weekly profile we can see where we have stalled. This 52566 reference which was given, which was an target, one of the major targets above that 180R objective, held, stalled, and this is also the weekly zone of singles. So this is a very major supply point, because on the weekly time frame we have left a zone of singles here. So this is where we stalled today. 52577 was the morning high we made in the gap up, and we were not able to sustain, and we got back into previous day's range. So this is also an open rejection reverse. We'll come to that detail when we see the future chart in a bit. And what we have done is formed a B-shaped profile and have taken support right at this POC. So you can see how what we had already mentioned in the report, which was published yesterday, has been taking place to the T. We got stalled right at that upper reference, and we came on to take support right at this important support level of 51879. So this will remain an important reference tomorrow. If we sustain below this, then we are looking for more downside in Bank Nifty spot. On the upside, we will need to take off this halfback and negate this selling tail which we have of today, because this is the opening of the week, and an open rejection reverse is a very strong start. It is telling us that an institution is present, a large big player is present in the auction. So unless we are able to negate that player, or that player shows us signs that he has covered, we cannot be bullish in this uh, chart. So this is as far as the Bank Nifty spot is concerned. We will have the hypos for tomorrow updated along with this, and we will also have this daily chart updated, so that we are sure about what the auction is doing on a daily basis and how the weekly settlement for this week can shape up. So let's now come to the Nifty futures chart. And before we start with the Nifty futures chart, I would want to give a small brief about the open types. Open types is a very important feature in market profile, and it is the first setup which we use, which we want to identify once the market opens. So what is the open type? The open type is evaluated on the basis of where the auction has opened and what it does in the first 15 minutes after opening. So we have different types of open. There is an open auction in range, open auction out of range. But these three opens are low conviction opens. So the volumes in this open will also be on the lower side. Whereas the other kind of opens are the open drive, open test drive, and open rejection reverse. So these are the stronger opens, and we want to have an entry into these kind of days where we can identify the open type as this. So I'll give you examples of the last week, both in Nifty as well as Bank Nifty futures, where we have had strong opens, and the strong opens uh, tell us immediately to get into the auction. When the open is a low conviction open, we will have to wait for a trade, and we will have to be more patient. But when you're having a strong open, one of these open, which is the open drive, open auction, open test drive, or an open rejection reverse, we will look to make most of it and look to enter at the earliest. So how do we identify the open type? So the first 15 minutes of the auction, what do we observe? We'll first observe where the auction is opened, whether it is above the value or above the POC of previous session, and whether it is inside value or whether it is above below the value or POC. So if it is above value, we are bullish. If it is below value, we are bearish. And if it is inside the previous value, that means nothing has changed, and we it could be a uh, low range kind of a day, scalpers kind of a scenario. And along with where it is opened compared to the POC and the value, we also have to make a note of the volumes in the first 15 minutes. So it is very important because a strong open will definitely be followed by better than average volumes. So that is the reason we make a note of the average volume both in Nifty futures and Bank Nifty futures. And at the VMR in the trading room, all of us are looking at the volumes, whether the opening volumes are good enough for us to give a good move in the initial balance. So the Nifty futures average volumes vary between 20,000 to 25,000 contracts for the first 15 minutes. And in Bank Nifty, the same is around 10,000 to 15,000 contracts. So for a strong open, we look for volumes greater than this, and higher the volumes, better we can expect the range to expand. So if in case the volumes are double of what the normal average volume for the first 15 minutes is, you can look for a bigger range expansion. So that is how we evaluate the open type. And having said that, I will take you to few examples from last week. Let us start with the Bank Nifty and then we'll move on to the Nifty, because we always do the Nifty futures first. So we have lot of guys who tell we there is no time to cover the Bank Nifty charts. So what we'll do today is we'll cover the Bank Nifty first and then we'll move on to the Nifty. So you can see the first example I would want to give you is from last week. We will take all the days from 14th of October till today. So on 14th of October, you can see this is the profile which was closed on Friday, which was the 11th, the weekly profile. This was a double distribution down profile, but the POC has shifted to the lower part. And what we saw on Monday was the open above the POC and at the VWAP, and we left a zone of buying tail. So the same signal, if we look in the order flow chart, I have the 15-minute order flow chart on screen, the Bank Nifty futures, and I am taking you to the 14th October order flow. So what I am showing you is what open type we got in the last few sessions. The stronger opens is what I'm going to cover, along with how the order flow gives us that confirmation of that is a strong open. So this is the 14th of October's opening 15-minute bar. So you can see the opening volumes are not great. I had mentioned the average volumes were 10,000 to 15,000 in Bank Nifty, but this was below average. But what it had done, you can see this VWAP, this green line is the VWAP of previous day, and this white line is the POC of previous day. So what it had done was it had moved away from the POC and the VWAP, and we saw that on the profile chart also. This was the profile chart, and if I just show you the 14th profile, this is that POC which we saw in the order flow chart, and this is the VWAP. So what we have done is we have moved away, albeit this was on low volumes, but what confirmation we got was the next 15-minute bar showed us greater volumes in the first 15-minute bar. So this is telling us that the buyers are adding up. So see, we are moving away from previous market profile reference and we are getting increase in volumes. So this tells us this auction is strong in that direction. And this kind of a start, which is an open drive to the upside, we would want to enter into this market as early as we can, because this is telling us we can get a good imbalance in the first hour, the initial balance. So that is what happened. Although later we went on to get an RS and we stalled, what we did on the daily profile was we formed a P shape, and you can see how we never broke below VWAP on that day. So after this open drive, we remained above VWAP and we went on to make a minor range extensions to the upside. So this is how we identify the open type and use the order flow to make sure that the open type is a strong one. So the next open type in Bank Nifty I would want to show is the 17th of October, where we had this, where we had this 2-day profile Gaussian curve, and from here we are expecting an imbalance. So already we were looking for an imbalance move away from this value, and here we opened above this value, we got rejected, and we immediately not just completed the 80% rule, but we went on to make a big move downside. So let us see the order flow chart of what it showed us on the 70. Generally what happens, the first 15-minute volumes is the highest, then the volume start to contract. But if the open is a strong one, then the second 15-minute volume will be more or on par with the first 15-minute volume. That is telling us that the trend is strong and it can continue to move in that direction. So here you can see the 16th profile, the order flow were very small, 8,000 contracts on both. So these are not big volumes, which is the reason we did not get a big move on this day. And we formed that Gaussian curve. So this is that 17th October's open, the opening 15 minutes, you can see how this is opposite of what we saw on Monday, the 14th. We have a big red bar, which is closed below this POC and VWAP of previous day. So this itself is telling us it's a bearish chart, and what it has done is it is closed below this value area low, the first 15-minute bar itself. You can see the value area low is around the 52,000 mark, and the first 15-minute bar itself is closed below that mark, and you have a POC of that bar right at that 52006. So you have an IS bar on the 15-minute with the POC at the value area low of that 2-day composite. So you don't need a better signal than this to go short in Bank Nifty with this as your stop loss. It's a very small stop loss. If you're entering at the right moment over here, you did get zeros on the sell side here, but once this was broken with this as your stop loss, it was a free fall, and it did give a big fall. It went on to tag a VPOC and finally began to balance as the POC shifted to the downside. So again, the opening volumes, you can see the opening bar was volume wise just around average 10,000 contracts, but you just see the next 15-minute volume. This is double of what was on the first 15 minutes. So this is telling us that the selling is intensifying and the range can expand to a bigger uh, aspect. So that is what we want to see, and till the time the volumes are expanding, you can look for more downside. Once the volume begin to wane, then you know that it is time to book, and even the sellers are booking out. So whenever we need a fresh move, we will need to see the change in volumes even on the order flow part. So this was the last open type, which was an open drive down, which was on 17th. Sorry, this is not the last. This was on 17th. And let us now shift our focus to what happened on 18th. 18th order flow, if you see, we opened lower, made new lows, but immediately we got back into previous day's range. So technically, theoretically, this was an open rejection, reverse. We opened, tested below previous lows, and got back into previous day's range. But what we were not able to do is close above this POC in the opening 15-minute bar. So it was, and you have this big zone of zeros on the buy side. So it was not a very confident looking bar, and we were still expecting that the sellers could strike back. But what happened in the next bar? You can see how the next bar took off this, and then it was very clear that this is an open rejection reverse to the upside. So here you see how the volumes have been maintained. We had 10,000 in the next 15 minutes, and then we had 13,000 contracts. So this was telling us that the buyers are getting more dominating, and what we need to do is get into the uh, trade and have the latest reference as our trailing stop loss. So these are how we identify the strong opens, and they help us to understand if it is a market where we have to enter immediately, or if it is a market where we need to wait for the time. I'll show a classic example of the Nifty futures where we had an open auction out of range last week, and how the low volumes were making us to wait. But once that low volumes gave a move away, we got a very good move in Nifty futures. So when you're getting a strong open, like the open rejection reverse or an open drive or an open test drive, then you just need to take help of the order flow and enter into trades. I'll show some examples of the option trades of today, which we did in the VMR also, which was helpful after we identified the open type to be an open rejection reverse. So let us now come to today's open and see how it qualified as an open rejection reverse. So it was a trend day up on Friday, and this was the POC. So what we did today was we opened higher. We had a weekly FA. We went on to tag the 180R of the weekly FA, but you can see here the opening 15-minute bar, it had above average volumes, but we were not able to sustain these new highs. And this order flows concept, if you see, was an RS, responsive selling pattern. So similar to the bar which we studied a couple of days back, we have zeros on the sell side here. But because this is an RS bar and it is stalling right at previous day's high, and an entry into previous day's range will trigger and move lower to test the POC and whatever references was there. So if we see the profile chart, you can see how we opened above, and once we entered back into this range, we are expecting a test of this POC and this zone of singles of the I period, this extension handle, and below that the VWAP of the trend day which we had. So these were the lower objectives which we were expecting, but we needed confirmation from the order flow. So how did the order flow confirm that to us? After this better than better than average volume open, which was an RS, we were waiting for an entry into this previous day's range. And once that happened in the second 15-minute bar, you can see the volumes have not reduced. It is almost equal to what it was in the first 15-minute. And once it got back into previous day's range, it remained in the previous day's range and gave that move to this POC, and also tested that extension handle which we were looking in the Bank Nifty profile chart. This was tested and we went on to test this anomaly which was at 52062. And what we did from there was we formed an RB, but then because this is an open rejection reverse, this POC of this second bar was our reference for the day. Till the time this was taken out, we were looking for retracements lower, the bounces to give more downside, and which is what happened. You can see we did get back above VWAP, but you can see the number of reds we are seen in this order flow bar. So this, in fact, the supply was adding up in this probe above VWAP, and we stalled right at this POC. So this was a perfect signal to get back into long P's, and the target would again be this RB, and below that the VWAP of previous day, and that is what we did. We remained below VWAP for the rest of the day, and then this POC became our reference. We went on to make lower lows, and we tagged that VWAP, which was at 51973, I think. So there you can see there is some covering. We have got RB bars. So we can see how the sellers are booking profits here, but in the move back to VWAP, the VWAP is not been able to be taken out. So again, we have got that move back to that VWAP level into the close today. So this is how order flow not only showed us the open was with the sellers, it also showed us when the sellers were coming back and when they were booking. So tomorrow again, this VWAP will be important on the upside, and on any bounce here, if we are getting sell side confirmation in the order flow, we look to go short. And this RB would be our reference support for tomorrow, because this is also matching with the VWAP of the trend day. And in spot, we saw how that 51879 was holding on the downside. So that 51879 is syncing with this 51955, and a break of this and sustaining will trigger more downside in Bank Nifty futures. So we will need to see what the open type is tomorrow. In case we are getting good volumes at the open and we are driving below this RB, then we can look for a quicker move lower. So this is as far as the Nifty future, Bank Nifty futures is concerned. Now let us have a look at the Nifty chart and what were the opens we had last week. I'll just quickly run through the order flow, 15-minute order flow of last week, and starting from the 14th, which was an open drive up. And we will also see that example of the open auction out of range we had last week, where the volumes were pathetic and the order flow was telling us that we need to be patient on that day. There is no reason to rush into any trade. So, so this is the 14th Monday's order flow chart of Nifty futures, and you can see how previous day's POC and VWAP is at 25,055 and 25,066. So you see the first bar itself is moved away from both this POC and the VWAP. So which was telling us that the auction wants to move higher. But what it did was it formed an RS bar, but immediately that RS was taken out by this big buyer. This we had also seen last Monday, where we saw this emergence of big player give us that move, and this held all day last week. So this was an open drive up because we have moved away from previous day's POC and we remained above previous value. And once we got back above VWAP held for the rest of the day. So this was one open type for Nifty futures. And the very next day, we got this sad looking open. You can see this is the open of 15th of October, where we have just 13,000 contracts, and the second 15-minute bar is showing us just 5,000 contracts. So this, even when we include both the 15-minute bars, it is not giving us the average, which is 20 to 25,000 contracts in first 15 minutes. So you know when, and it is open auction out of range to the upside, and we have not been able to sustain higher because we have formed an RS. So that is telling us that the auction is not getting aggressive demand, which can take it to higher levels. So that is when we need to make note. And once we see the volumes increasing, we need to get into this. This was certainly not a day to get into any trade for the A period, in the A period. But as the B period started, you can see how once we broke this, the volumes also started to expand. We got the highest volumes in this third 15-minute bar, and we just swipe through previous day's range. So this is how the open type keeps us in sync and tells us when to trade and where to trade. And here we got this big seller of 4,000 contract, which was our reference for all days of the week. And that reference held, and we went on to make new lows. You can see how this pullback held right at 25180. In fact, the next day open also we tagged that 25180, and so this is the high we made, and we stopped right there because that was also that was a seller reference. That was the big seller who had come in, who was saving his left lens. So this is the open auction out of range which we saw. Now let us go to the 18th of October's open in Nifty futures and see what kind of an open was confirmed in that. Sorry, 17th we'll take first. 17th was an open drive down, which we also saw in Bank Nifty. You can see how we have formed a red bar in the first 15 minutes, breaking below previous day's VWAP and the POC. And these were the important references marked out from last Friday. We got an open drive right from this level to the upside, but now things had changed. We had seen initiative sellers come back into the auction, and we saw that big seller at 25182, and that seller then again led to this fresh IS being formed. So here the POC was our reference, and once you can see how the second 15-minute bar in fact had increase of volumes. So here you know that this is giving you more downside. This is an open drive down, so you want to get into a trade on the short side and look for long put opportunities and hold on to some part because the volumes are increasing even in the second 15-minute bar. So this POC shifting lower was a signal that book out most of the shots and trail your rest to this VWAP or this POC, but still the PLR was to the downside, and we went on to form a B shape kind of a profile. So again on 17th, the strong open gave us a good range expansion in the first hour. After the first hour is done, we will need fresh volumes for the trend day setup where the auction continues to make big range extensions and lower lows throughout the day, which was not the case when we saw on 17. So that is the reason we formed a B shape kind of a profile. So this is what we did on 18th, the Friday. So you can see here Nifty, the opening 15 minutes, we clocked 39,000 contracts. So this was almost double the average, and it was a big IS bar because we closed around the lows and the POC was in the not in the middle but in the lower part. But looking at this bar, it was looking that we are in for more downside. But immediately the next bar showed us zeros on the sell side and we got back above VWAP and we negated this POC of previous bar. So that is telling us this open drive down is getting negated. And now we have an open rejection reverse on the cards. And why? Because we got back above VWAP, and once we got back above VWAP, we remained above VWAP. We continued to make range extensions to the upside, and we continued to leave higher NPOCs. These NPOCs, RB NPOC and IB NPOCs were respected. And we went on to almost tag that big round number of 25,000. So it was a trend day to the upside, which was confirmed after this open drive lower was negated by an open rejection reverse. So, and how till how long does that open type stay good? Because VWAP of that day would be the reference. So on the date, as long as we were holding the VWAP, the initiative party which has entered will be in control. So which is why once we got this confirmation of ORR, this VWAP had to be defended. So if we go to today's order flow chart in Nifty futures, you see what we have done. We opened higher. We have tested this NPOC, which was a sell side reference, but we have not been able to get demand over here. So here we have got back into previous day's range. This itself was a bearish signal. And once we break these lows of the first opening 15 minutes, you know that this is an open rejection reverse and we need to get into this for a test of the lower references. If you see the Nifty profile chart, what were the lower references? Once we got below this POC, we were looking at this VWAP and this value area low. And if I split this profile chart, we have the buy side references. This was an extension handle 24777. This IBH 24777 was an extension handle, and this TPO high of 24740 had a buy side reference, and we finally had this BTPO POC of 720 and this buying tail. So these were the downside objectives once we got the confirmation of an ORR. And on the upside, what we'll do, we will take the latest information. So this POC, which was matching with previous day's POC, would be our stop loss for short, remaining short. And as and when we go on to tag those targets, we will book profits and hold on. So here you can see how this POC, the POC of Friday was actually lower at 24725 before it shifted to the top into the close. So how again we spoke about this same POC, shifting of POC, and the POC is becoming probable targets, and the last held POCs being probable targets with the option charts when we discuss the line charts with examples on Thursday. So it's a similar kind of a setup even in this Nifty futures. So this POC had shifted up. So once again, when we got a move from that, again we got a test of this POC lower. So this was tested and we did not get any supply here. We got an RB bar. So this stalled the downside for the day. But what we found on the upside was we were not able to sustain above VWAP. So this 923 level was our reference because this was the lower part of the Friday's balance. And because this was holding, we were expecting the Nifty to form a balance between this RS and this RB. So that is what it did. It took support again at the 24720 mark and gave a move to VWAP In fact, it even gave an IB, but you can see how that IB was not able to take off this 24923 level. And then we went on to uh, give a retracement back to test this IB lows and this NPOC of 24765. So this is how we identify the open type, and once we identify the open type, we want to get into the trade. So I'll just show a quick look of how and when we could take the trades in options based on the open type. So I have opened the 25,000 put, and after this we will run a quick one of the put in the Bank Nifty before we wind up for today. So you can see how the opening in this put was a bearish kind of a scenario because we had zeros on the top. It was a red bar and we closed below VWAP. But the POC of the opening bar was at the lows, and immediately the next bar we got back above VWAP. So this was the first sign that we were getting an open which was not getting accepted, and the higher open where which is not been getting fresh demand. But what is the confirmation in options for us to go long? First, the option for long options, we want that option to be above VWAP, and then we need to get IB signals or green bars at VWAP, and those green bars NPOC become our reference. So if we are an aggressive trader, this move back above VWAP is a good long trade with a very low risk of this POC as the stop loss. And further confirmation we get because we are staying above the VWAP and we are leaving higher NPOCs. So you can see how this kept on leaving these NPOCs and we kept on making green bars. So till what time do we hold on? Till the time we see a good RS bar. This is a RS bar and the POC shifting to the top. You can see how the POC in this started from here, shifted to this 168, and once we sustained above 168, it kept moving higher, and once it showed us that POC shifting to 300, this is definitely a profit booking uh, signal that you have to book profit and trail rest to cost. And you can see how in spite of making new highs later on, we immediately came down later. So the strong open, we will want to also use it for taking entries into options. I will now move on to a good to 52,500 put in Bank Nifty and see what was the signal we got after we could identify that the open type is an open rejection reverse in Bank Nifty futures. I'll increase this TPO size, PPR size to 2. We'll have a quick run through this and then we will see how a strong open will give us some good trades in the options also. So we have all these setups discussed. We have an audio session after the initial balance gets over at 10:30 every day. We have an audio session where we discuss the open type. We give importance to the references which are formed at the open, and then accordingly look to take some trades. So you can see how the open in this put was a bearish one. We were probing lower, but this 927 bar was the first bar which told us that we can look at more upside. How? Because this green bar not only closed above VWAP, it also took out this POC of 300. And in doing so, it negated this opening bar's POC of 308. So it was actually three things which this green bar did. So this was clearly telling us that if we are sustaining above the highs of this IB bar, this green bar, we can look for more upside in this put. And then by 9:30 the first 15 minutes is what we take to identify the open type. Once you realize that the auction is not staying outside previous day's range and there is no demand coming in, so it is all the more likely probable for this trade to work out. And once we get the signal that it is sustaining above this, and we also got an IB bar, so even if you were a very conservative trader and you want to enter after a confirmation of an IB, your entry would be here and your stop loss would be the lows of this IB, which you can trail later on to this IB POC. So this put was a very clean signal at the open. In fact, we traded this in the VMR and Chai gave us this trade and he was telling us to hold because this was giving us good green bars for the next few minutes. And this is where when we went on to tag that 52070 is where we got this RS. You can see this NPOC hitting right at the time where we hit that uh, lows of 52070. So this is how we identify, and not only an entry, but you can also look to re-enter, because what it did this after we went on to hit those highs of 641, this put came down to test the VWAP, and you can see this VWAP low is right at the POC of this first IB bar which we got, which we were using to enter into the trade as our stop loss. So when you are getting this confirmation at VWAP, this bar, the 10-6 bar is not a trade, but what it is telling us, it is testing this important reference. If we would have gotten follow through to this bar, which broke below this POC and then took off this lows of the IB bar, we would have not been any more bearish in Bank Nifty. But what it did was the next bar immediately took off this highs, the POC of this high and the highs of this bar. So this was a signal that we need to go long back in this PE with a stop loss at this new reference which it has given at this IB POC. So it went on to live an IB and it gave an RS. So it was not followed up by a very good bar, but it gave us a good re-entry at that VWAP and an important reference to this 538. This was a quick 200-point jump in just 6 minutes. So if you are aware about what the order flow levels are and where the signals are coming and what it is doing at VWAP, especially after a open type, which is a strong one. So when we have an open rejection reverse, VWAP always will be respected, be it in futures or be it in options. So you need to be extra careful, extra alert when the option is when the auction is or the option is coming to the VWAP of the day. So I'll show you one quick example of a contra trade today in the 24,800 CE, because as I mentioned, in Nifty the VWAP was taken out for some time, and you can see how that VWAP break gave us a good move to the upside. So this is where the VWAP was taken out with an IB, the 131 bar. So you can see how we saw a big short covering move in this, where you could have taken an contra trade in this call above these highs. 118 was the high. So above this high, or in fact IB plus IB, when we got the second IB bar, you could have taken a long at this with the lows as the stop loss. And this was a very quick move, and it was a contra move definitely, because we were the main trend of the market is still to the downside. So you can see how from 128 it went on to make a high of 162, but again it came back and gave us an IS. So these are contra trades, but order flow will be very quick, and you need to be aware when you need to hold on to your position, then when you need to be very quick in coming out. So this is how we want to we all trade options using the order flow at the VMR. So we have an awesome combination of the market profile chart and the order flow chart along with the option suite. So with live hand holding in the trading room, all of us are in sync with what the market is trying to do, and whenever we get these signals, we are very quick to get into trades and come out of them. So this is what was the agenda for today's session. The open type is, as I mentioned at the start, is a very important feature, and that sets you up for the rest of the day. So coming to the close, just taking any questions. RS and RB bar, we have them explained in detail in both the e-course videos as well as the training library. So if you want to get better at this, you will have to come. Even the open type is being explained in detail in both the e-course as well as the training library videos. So if you are very serious about getting deeper about these concepts and becoming better at identifying them in real time and taking trades of them, you need to get better at the learning part, because these are setups which keep repeating day on day. I showed you examples over the last 4-5 sessions where we have got some good strong opens in both Nifty futures and Bank Nifty futures. So if you are aware about these setups, you will definitely be able to monetize them. So that is it for today, guys. From my side, in case there are any queries, you can ping me on Twitter. My Twitter ID is given at Uttam Goel, and my DM is open. So you can please feel free to post your suggestions, ask your queries, and also give your feedback on the sessions. So thank you all for joining in, and have a great week ahead. And let's stay in touch and look for some good tradable setups using the market profile and order flow.